Hello, fellow patriots, and welcome to episode 13. The environment issue is just a cover for implementing regulations to stem the growth of America, and the recent supposed Russian collusion is exactly the same thing. Attempts to manufacture and leak evidence is just the leftist efforts to sabotage a new president and his commitment to reinvigorate our society. These attempted character assassinations will backfire in time, as the truth of the real sources will be made public. Now on with the show.
Welcome to Patriot Radio America. And now your host, Tony Breitling.
Welcome back, everybody, to Patriot Radio America. This is your host, Tony Breitling. I hope you guys enjoyed yesterday's audio crosstalk with Bob Adams. It's a program that he had been trying to put together for a while, and we've been kicking around the idea. Our intent, when we originally started Patriot Radio America, it's not just going after the facts and politics. And, you guys, just like I warned, all right, I've had this problem my whole life, that when I usually step into a subject and I start talking about it, I offend everybody because I strip all the conclusions that are based on some assumptions, and assumptions that are based on assumptions. And once you start adding things up, you realize that how people build their case up on how they believe something or what they're looking at really doesn't even exist. And that's what happened in the currency world. That was always my intent. Here you have a perfect opportunity, different opportunities in foreign currency, in foreign markets that might not look, the average investor that invests like on the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange probably won't even look at this stuff. They don't really know how it works. And so you bring in logic, you bring in math, you bring in timelines and the risk factor based on how much you're going to invest. And guess what? It all starts to add up. And there's always risk. 100%, there's always risk. And so that's the disclaimer on when I would talk about, different currencies and stuff like that. But the hype behind it, all right? So we did a study, and this is actually a long time ago. This is just before I started. You guys, I didn't go to college for very long because I found out the education that I had was to go out and find facts based on timelines, policy, and then see exactly where that led. Never assume anything. Never put your 2 cents worth. You're not allowed to put your favorite color in it. Your religion, nothing. Those were against the rules. All right. So when I got into college, I found that that's all it was. And then as I worked more and more with the Republican Party, that's why I quit, because I found out that's all it was. There was no facts behind anything. And it's even what's even more strange about that is some of the people that were disappointing to me were people that would vote the exact same way that I would on any subject. So that's kind of strange, right? It's like, well, if they voted the exact same way that you would, I mean, who cares? Well, you guys, it's all principle based. You can't have somebody watching your back. And that's what I always looked at politics is that, okay, a republic by the numbers. There's no race. There's no religion. We're all allowed to believe what we believe in. We're not interested in your color. It's all performance based and it's all based on math, 100%. Well, when you have people that don't use that, guess what? They're going to sabotage you because your good works and the way you're paying taxes or how you're trying to pay taxes doesn't work because the guy down the street who's not paying as much as you or putting in back into the society, he's basically draining you and nobody cares. So he gets away with it. So that's why, I found out very early that politicians, they don't cover you. They don't have your back. They could care less. So it's always a huge problem with me. But the reason I'm bringing this up is that, again, you guys, I get heavy email and meaning the volume and sometimes the accusations, but every accusations that's been thrown out there, it's like, well, you're a little bit too heavy handed. Your opinions are a little bit, I think it's biased. It's like, okay, well, show me the math and I'll, let's just talk about the EPA. You show me, there's a couple ways to break it down, to do an analysis on it. The American economy versus the Chinese economy, the American economy versus the Western European economy, their regulations versus our regulations. I mean, you could count how many regulations that we have through the EPA. That's one way. The other way is to look at how many regulations these, China or Western Europe has, and then how many of those regulations have been forced on the, whatever company that, what's the ratio? And then you'll find out that United States has been held down. And then you start doing the math behind it. You start trying to figure out, okay, how does this stuff work? What's actually causing the rise in CO2, or how is all this stuff work? And you realize that the people who are supposed to be the authority behind all this, the 3 times that they had a chance to put this out in front of the world and prove their case, failed 3 times in a row. That's why they won't go to court. What they try to do, what the left tries to do in this scenario, is that they try to separate it and say that, look, there's rising CO2. And you guys, there's ways that we can measure that, and there's ways that we can predict if CO2 is going to go up or down before it even is supposed to happen. We'll talk about that in a different audio. And that's what they try to do. They try to separate it from, is it man-made or not? They don't want to bring that together in one debate, even though that's, or not in a debate per se, because that's what their claim is, but in a legal form. They will never go to court and try to say, hey, that the earth is warming up and it's 100% man-made. Once you realize what's out there outside of our atmosphere on this planet, you'll realize where it's all coming from. And it's just simple math, simple observation. They can't get around it. They simply can't get around it. So I'm gonna read a couple more articles about that today. I mean, this audio is not about the EPA. I'm going over a couple things. Again, I want to relate to you on how it is that I handle things. You guys, I back up every single thing that I say. All right? Every single thing that I really don't make predictions or anything like that, but I take the best math that there is and I follow that trend. On how, like in Iraq, how the currency works. Or in Vietnam or United States. I'm more interested in how the currency works in the United States than anything. I could write a book on it, you guys. It is fascinating. It is beyond what you think. And I know there's people that have written books about it, and there's even sites out there that kind of touch a little bit, but for some reason, nobody brings it all together. I have the ability to do that because I've been researching it for so long. I know exactly how it works. I know exactly what it is. I know the competition behind it. And, what's interesting, one of the responses that I got, I think it was probably 2 episodes ago on In the Dinar World, that Bob actually did an interview. Maybe it was the last episode. And I talked about how that if you notice that Europe only helped us when it was in the Middle East, when there was a certain part of the Middle East that threatened the euro, like Libya. You had the Gaddafi, who wanted to be able to create the African dinar, and it was going to be backed by gold. So that's a threat to the U.S. dollar, and it's also a threat to the euro. But they didn't help when we bombed the living crap out of Iraq, the second Gulf War, took out Saddam Hussein, because he was specifically attacking the U.S. dollar. Well, that's good as far as the euro is concerned. So they didn't help. So you guys see how this stuff works? And those are the main reasons on why the activity is going on in the Middle East and how it's working. It's not necessarily, you guys, what's strange about this, I talked to a lot of people about this, and it's always, well, we're trying to get oil, or we're trying to get this. You guys, it's not true. It's simply not true. It's like, well, wait a minute. There's oil over there, and we're always doing something with you go back in history and you look at who is the most aggressive and who is less aggressive. It's always proportionate to what it is that they have and their capabilities. In other words, if you looked at Rome and you looked at all the material that it had and the people power, the manpower, guess what? They were the ones who were going to, take the biggest shot, right? And then that trend changed as their empire kind of crumbled. They had less. Well, you guys, we have never forgotten that lesson. The way that we set up our economy and the way that we're not as vulnerable as everybody else, and everybody's vulnerable, even the United States, so don't get me wrong. But it has to do with making sure, not necessarily that we have the material, but making sure people that would compete against us do not have control of that material. And so it's not necessarily us taking it away, but maybe we can create chaos. Maybe we can create civil war, or, we don't even have to do it. We can just, it's already there. And we can just kind of fan the flame a little bit. And that's geopolitics. And there's no way to get around it. Like I said, it's a very tough subject, not just for the fact that you got to know what you're talking about, but you guys, it's not a Sunday school lesson. All right. There's a lot of, how do you say it? I don't want to say evil, because there's threats out there and you don't want them to have the material to threaten your country. But at the same time, it's mischievous. It's on the outside. It's probably not, looking at it from the outside, it's probably not the most moral thing that you can do. But we all do it. Everybody does it. Nobody can deny it. So very strange. But anyways, I'm going to go into a commercial here, and then we'll come back. We'll start getting this program, you guys. I have a lot to cover today, and you guys will love this. So again, contact Bob and set up a program with him. You guys can ask me questions, or you can just throw out your own opinions and comments, and we'll be right back, all.
Everybody faces the inevitables, death and taxes. But what about the greatest fear of all, outliving your retirement? How much is enough when facing the desires, health considerations, and legacy of your life? Do you have enough set aside or invested to meet your personal goals? And when should you get serious about it? If your answer is now, then welcome to SimTrade Pro, your only source for the fastest investment programs, retirement, and tax planning resources. SimTrade Pro offers options to achieve, protect, and retain the financial security you need to make your golden years a reality. That's www.simtradepro.com. The funny name, with all the answers.
Welcome back. I wanted to be able to knock out this question on the cancellation of the repealing of the Obamacare. And a lot of people are, they're trying to get the temperature from me on whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. So, I mean, from a liberal perspective, all right, here's what they think. Here's some of the talk out there. Nobody gets this. So they're out there saying, they're laughing because it's a big defeat for Trump, right? I mean, he promised in his campaign, we're going to go after Obamacare, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to destroy Obamacare. All right. Well, they didn't go up to vote, so that's a big, huge defeat in the liberal eyes. Well, here's what people don't understand. I mean, instead of, it's two football teams going after each other, let's figure out what it is that happened to the Democrats who didn't have the support that Trump does right now and was able to pass Obamacare. You know what happened to the Democrats? They've gotten their asses kicked for the last 10 years. They've completely lost the House and the Senate. So is that I'll put it in front of you guys. Just simply do the math. Was it a good thing? Now, there's people out there that might politically agree with the idea of universal health care and Obamacare and all that stuff. But mathematically, politically, did he benefit from it? No. They've been getting their asses kicked ever since, you guys. So in my view, and I understand, you guys, it's not a success that they didn't pass the bill. But, what I'm looking at and I'm comparing is the idea if they had passed this bill and then you have the different caucuses in the Republican Party, they probably would have torn each other apart, and it would have been a disaster. And then guess what? Then you have the next elections coming up where you might have some Republicans that got hurt by it. It was a miracle that they didn't pass it, you guys. It simply was a miracle. You know, again, you guys, it's not, you know, it's not some type of cycle. It's not a political bubble. There was things that the Democrats, they shoved down America's throats. And you have these principle-based liberals who've been voting liberal their whole life. And then you have Democrats, which is completely separate. They were losing their jobs. I pointed this out many times. There's many liberals out there that voted for Trump because the principles don't work anymore. They were losing their jobs. They couldn't farm. They couldn't go to certain places and get water because, one thing after another. And then you had these countries that competed against us and didn't have those problems. Nobody could figure out, how are they becoming rich, and we're, the middle class in this country is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Like I said, you guys, it's not a bubble. Somebody's doing something. And, finally, some people on the left figured it out and they voted for Trump. The reason I'm bringing this up, and I'm attaching it to the failure for the repealing of the Obamacare, because that's the last thing that the Republicans need, is to be able to jam those type of legislation, bad legislation, down people's throats to where, okay, I understand the math. It's repealing the Obamacare and it's better than nothing, right? Well, why would you have the House and the Senate and we have the presidency? Why would you, where's the, we'll take the lesser of the two evils. Bull crap. We can do anything we want. We can do anything we want. Now, have said that, you guys, this illusion that the president, because the House is Republican and the Senate is Republican, that he has complete power, can do anything he wants. It's always been nonsense from day one. No Republican or Democrat has ever had that type of power. It's very rare, all right? Maybe during war times. But there's always been some type of, caucuses within the parties that disagree, or even think about this, the Democrats. There's always been a conservative element of the Democrats that didn't, on certain votes that didn't go along with the party line. So is that a failure for Trump? No, it's not. You guys, they avoided disaster. And, they didn't do it on purpose, but they did. They avoided disaster. And, again, all you have to do is look at what Obama did. And it doesn't matter whether you think Obamacare was good or bad. Look what they did to their party, and look what happened to the party after they signed these bills into law. Look at what they did with all these, and Republicans did this also. Bringing in all these people from these countries, taking up jobs that kids were going to school for. And because they can bring in somebody for half the price, don't have to pay Social Security and health care, that kid would go to school for 4 to 6 years. And he got out of school, college, and he couldn't pay for his loans because he couldn't get the job that he was getting his education for, because some person from another country who did not deserve that job got it at a technicality. It's the same thing. It's like, well, what's that have to do with that? You guys, it's the same thing. It's a tax. We don't have representation. How is bringing people from other countries taking our jobs? Where's the representation in that? It's a tax. It's a form of tax. So there is no representation. Taxation without representation. What about the idea on Obamacare and universal health care? Great. Well, the only problem is it's another tax. In other words, you guys, you're never going to be able to retire. You're never going to be able to rest. You do understand that, right? You got to pay automatic insurance on your cars. You got to you can't just go out and have a house out in the middle of nowhere. You've got to hook up electricity to it. You got to hook up sewer to it. If it's within a certain neighborhood that has that sewer, and I understand, the sanitarian purpose behind it and make everything sanitary and clean all that stuff, that's fine. But it builds up after a while. And people just start to break down. It doesn't work. It's completely, it's too big of, it's too, for people to shoulder. You guys, it's just too much. We're losing jobs in this country, or were. And at the same time, the burden of everything, our taxes, the cost of energy, the cost of education, and it was, you guys, it was coming to a head. Thank God it didn't. But you could see it. I mean, think about this. I remember when I was a kid, driving to Phoenix and stuff like that, Scottsdale. We would go vacation, and then we'd head on down to Mexico. God, people were so happy. It was. What was very interesting is watching people from like New York and New Jersey, stuff like that, come out to Arizona for the first time, and you're like, oh my God, everybody's so nice. Everybody. Well, living here now, it's not like that. It's getting a little bit better, but everybody's driving around with a temper, road rage. Why? Because they're miserable. They can't get out of anything. They're stuck in payments. They're stuck in taxes. They're stuck in paying for stuff that they don't have anything to do with. They're stuck in the paying people who are coming over here, giving them health care, giving them everything free. They don't have to do anything. And the average person that's born here in the United States is driving around, and that burns on their shoulders. And people want to know where road rage comes from, or where this short temper comes from. That's where it's coming from. It's coming from pressure. You guys we're not designed for that type of stuff. And so that's why it's Obamacare, the repealing of Obamacare, in my opinion, failed because it wasn't good enough. It simply wasn't good enough. It is, the idea of it's lesser of the two evils, bullcrap, you guys. We have it all. If we have to go back 5 or 6 times and do it and fail each time, fine. That's fine. Good. But we don't need something that's inferior jammed down our throats. So let me read this. This is very interesting, and we'll go to a break. Monday, Fox News Business Network, Cavuto's Coast to Coast. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich said the House Freedom Caucus saved House Republicans from a politically destructive vote when they refused to support the House Republican health care bill, which only had a 17% approval rating among voters. Gingrich said, not voting on Friday was really good. The Democrats lost their majority for the first time in 40 years after they tried to push through Hillary Care. That's true. I forgot about that. The Democrats lost the majority again in 2010 after they pushed through Obamacare. If we had all the House Republicans line up and vote yes on that bill, that was a 17% approval. That means 4 out of 5 Americans were not approving, and I will guarantee you the Democrats would have had a field day. So I think the Freedom Caucus, whether they intended to or not, may have saved the Republican from a vote that would have been potentially very destructive, he continued. Now everybody ought to just get over it, look at the future, let's learn the lessons and recognize it. It took Reagan 8 months to pass a tax cut. It took us 18 months to pass the welfare reform. It took Pelosi and Obama 8 months to pass Obamacare. We're not in a rush here. We don't have to get everything done by Easter. And that's the point. That's this absolute rhetoric and this garbage out there that, hey, look, the liberals are getting excited because, something didn't get passed. What a failure. You guys, people are nuts. You people are nuts. The regulation that he got in the EPA and how he's changing the educational system and all that stuff, that's the stuff that counts. Obamacare will be we will get rid of it. So if you want to lie to yourself and, pat yourself on the back because it's a great thing, guys, I'm not going against anybody that believes in it or anything. It's fine. Great. That's what you believe in. But don't be a fool. Don't sit there and, yes, we got through one. You didn't win anything. You didn't win anything. The Republicans dodged a bullet. They might not have did it on purpose, but they dodged a bullet. Be right back, folks.
Do you like what you're hearing on Patriot Radio America? Well, you're not alone. Thousands of listeners tune in for each and every presentation, looking forward to the information and a new way of seeing how the world really works. Want to share your business, product, or service to all these listeners? Well, now you can. Patriot Radio America is growing, and part of that expansion includes marketing for businesses just like yours. Our special introductory offer includes your ad on every show for a month for the mere price of $100. To participate, simply contact me, Bob Adams, the program director, by email at bobadamsradioamerica@gmail.com. That's bobadamsradioamerica@gmail.com. Your message will be aired to our eager listeners, and while there are lots of ways to market, you can't beat word of mouth from a trusted source like Patriot Radio America.
Welcome back, everybody. This is going to be fun, but it's all, I get more flack by talking about this than anything I've talked about so far. But again, I go by the math. I'll back anything up that we point out or that we're looking at. And so what we're doing, what are we comparing here when we talk about the wiretapping? We're comparing the accusations from the Democrats compared to the accusations from the conservatives. And we weigh those two. And it's that simple. That's what we're doing. We're trying to figure out, who's doing what, right? So bear with me, you guys, because I'm going to go through a couple articles and then we're going to go through the math here. But more and more reports of this article that I found on, this is on Breitbart, and I'll throw it up for you guys. More and more reports are coming out that show the Obama administration had surveilled the Trump campaign, the White House said Friday. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer highlighted two during the White House press briefing. One was an interview on March 2nd in which former Obama administration official Evelyn Farkas described MSNBC how she urged former colleagues in government to save and spread as much information on Russia as they could before Trump came into office. Farkas said, according to an exact transcript of the interview, I was urging my former colleagues, former is the key word here, my former colleagues, and frankly speaking, people on the Hill, it was more actually aimed at telling the Hill people, get as much information as you can, get as much intelligence as you can before President Obama leaving the administration, because I had a fear that somehow that information would disappear with the senior people who left. So it'd be hidden away in the bureaucracy that the Trump folks, if they found out how we knew what we knew about the staff, the Trump staff's dealings with Russians, that they would try to compromise those sources and methods, meaning we would no longer have access to that intelligence. So I became very worried because not enough was coming out into the open, and I knew that there was more. We have very good intelligence on Russia. So then I had talked to someone of my former colleagues, and I knew that they were trying also to help get information to the Hill. That is why you have the leaking. People are worried. Well, anyway, Spicer said the interview raised serious concerns on whether or not there was an organized, widespread effort by the Obama administration to use and leak highly sensitive intelligence information for political purposes. Separately, Spicer pointed out an NBC News report on Friday that appeared to corroborate Farkas's comments. It said Obama administration officials were so concerned about what would happen to key classified documents related to a probe into Russian interference in the elections once Trump took office if they created a list of document serial numbers to give to senior members of the Senate Intelligence Committee. A former Obama official told NBC News that list was created in early January and that he hand-carried it to committee members. He said the purpose was to make it harder to bury the information, to share it with those on the Hill who would carefully see the documents, and to make sure it would reside in the Intelligence Committee safe, not just at Langley, the CIA's headquarters. Dr. Farkas' admission alone is devastating, Spicer said. Critics of the administration have pointed out on social media that Farkas left the administration in September 2015. But the concerns is not whether she herself tried to save and spread intelligence, but that she was urging some of her former colleagues still in an administration to do so, and knew some who were trying to also help get information to the Hill. Farkas has also been described as a Hillary Clinton campaign advisor, including in March 2017, the New Yorker report. The Yorker report, during a brief, Spicer also suggested the administration officials may have more evidence to back up Farkas' account, as well as Trump's assertion that his campaign was being spied on by the Obama administration that they intended to share with congressional leaders. Spicer said the White House had invited House Intelligence Committee Devin Nunes, Republican California, ranking member Adam Schiff, Democrat Washington, to the White House on Friday. Schiff was later seen entering the White House. There is a concern that people misused, mishandled, misdirected classified information, leaked it out, spread it out, violated civil liberties, and a potential that happened should concern every single American, Spicer said. Day by day, more and more we are seeing that the substance of what we are talking about continues to move exactly in the direction the president spoke about in terms of surveillance occurred, and that would be very troubling, he said. So real quick, here's a clip. I think it's Fox News, and these guys are talking about Schiff, and they invited Schiff to look at the same documents that Nunes put out or observed, and and this guy gives a very, very good definition on what it is that was seen and what's going on, and it's part of the problem because the last article that I read where you had Dr. Farkas, it doesn't make any sense. She said, by the way, she's put these, why she put this out? She's not tattling on Democrats. They know that the Republicans know, and it's going to come out, and she's going to get in trouble. And so what did she do? She tried to, defuse the bomb before her name came out. And these other people that she talked to, knowing that they were trying to grab as much information about Donald Trump, and then basically unmask the names on this information and then give it into people's hands so it can be leaked later on down the road. That's what's going on. That's what they talked about. So Bob, roll the clip, and we'll be right back right after the clip.
The use of media materials is protected by the Fair Use Clause of the U.S. Copyright Act of 1976, which allows for the rebroadcast of copyrighted materials for the purpose of commentary, criticism, or education.
This story is breaking. A Fox News alert. We are getting some brand new details on that visit to the White House Devin Nunes made, where he saw that information from a source on the surveillance that caught members of the Trump administration, as well as how the names were unmasked. The unmasking of the names of American citizens. Adam Housley joins us now from Los Angeles. Adam, you've been working on this morning. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Harris, we've been spoken to by a number of sources for the last couple of days, and it really came to a crescendo this morning because of a report yesterday that apparently outed two of Nunes' sources. Our sources, who have direct knowledge of what took place, were upset because those two individuals, they say, had nothing to do with the outing of this information. So let's go through what some of the headlines are. First of all, we've learned that the surveillance that led to the unmasking what started way before President Trump was even the GOP nominee. So basically, they started the surveillance to all this at some point earlier last year. The person who did the unmasking, I'm told, is very well known, very high up, very senior in the intelligence world, and is not in the FBI. This led to other surveillance, which led to multiple names being unmasked. Again, these are people who are private citizens in the United States. This had nothing to do with Russia, I'm told, or foreign intelligence of any kind. We also told the people who helped Devin Nunes navigate were the two individuals that the story was reported yesterday about, but they were not his sources. It was a navigation situation. And the reason why they had to navigate, I'm told, is that Nunes learned about this unmasking and who this was taking place back in January. And before Trump's tweet, before he met with the president, and it took obviously a number of weeks to try to figure out a way for him to see this intelligence, because the agencies were stonewalling, we're told, to allow him and others to see it. Now, this is all coming from folks that are in these agencies and frustrated with the politics that's taking place in these agencies. We're told that the main issue here is not only the unmasking of the names, but the spreading of names for political purposes that have nothing to do with national security and everything to do with hurting and embarrassing the Trump and his team. Also, Nunes, we said, knew about this existence again way before, back in January, before the Trump's tweet. Fox also learned that an individual with direct knowledge that after Nunes had been approached by his source, the agencies basically would not allow him in at all. Now, remind you, we're told only two places he could have seen this information. The first place is where the source works. Clearly, that would have been an outing. The second place, we're told, is in a location on the White House grounds. Now, remind you, the White House is not just the White House that we all see. There's the old executive office building, where you can also access after hours and get to the same type of highly sensitive information. So as you can tell, Harris, a lot of information coming out here. We're starting to get much more details on this as the intelligence community really is battling within itself on this, but it seems like there may be a couple of agencies involved here, and there are a number of people now, we're being told, that names have been unmasked. Again, private citizens in the U.S. This is unprecedented, Harris.
Yeah, and I know from some of the information that we've been reading today, those two locations, either the source's computers or on the White House grounds computers. And so when you ask the questions about why Nunes would have met there, you're starting to get some real clarification about that. Adam Housley, the story coming together today. As you learn more, I'm sure we'll bring you in to report it. Thank you.
Imperial Foot Spa. Full body massage.
Wow.
I get the full body massage. Oh gosh, they start from my head all the way down to my toes. It's sensational.
Foot reflexology.
I like the place. It's very accommodating, clean, professional. They focus on designated areas if you tell them to.
2095 North Dobson Road, northeast corner of Dobson and Warner in Lely Shopping Center, Chandler, Arizona.
Certain place that's bothering you, they will concentrate on that.
Ooh.
480-812-1689.
So what we'll do, you guys, I'm going to read one more article here, and then we'll go to a commercial. We'll come back and we'll kind of summarize some of this up, and then talk about two more little quick things, the subjects that people have been asking me about. So here we go. This is Newt Gingrich. This is Fox News. One of the articles that came to Fox News. The Trump-Russia investigation will probably stretch out for at least a year or longer. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich on Friday, but there should be parallel investigations as well, including ones into Bill and Hillary Clinton's connections to Russia. So you guys, just simple math, all right? There's not one Democrat that I've been able to talk to, or liberal, who can tell me where, you have the smoking gun, where you have Trump or any of his administration colluded with the Russians. When we talked about this, talking with the Russians doesn't count, because obviously Nancy Pelosi talks to Russians all the time. Schumer talks to Russians all these guys talk to Russians all the time. So you can't use that as some type of an example because you have Republicans talking to the same representatives from Russia. So that can't work. They can't use that in the mix, right? So what else is there? Has anybody seen anything? Nobody's seen anything. Anyways, Trump-Russian investigation will probably stretch out for at least a year or longer. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich said Friday, but there should be a parallel investigation as well, including one into the bill, Hillary Clinton's connections to Russia. The hearings are going to lead to information, which is going to lead to more stuff. Gingrich told Fox News, American Newsroom program, I expect we'll be living with this for at least a year. Isn't that strange? You know, if all this information that they supposedly had, but nobody's going to put it out, and it's not going to be seen for, you know, it's going to draw out for a year. You guys, either you have the information or you don't. And if you're going to start investigating people, you know, I put this out like 2 audios ago. You know, pick. Do you want to use the communist Chinese or the communist Russians? You know, just because the Russians failed at communism and their Marxism is failing doesn't mean that's not what they are anymore. You know, this idea that's like, well, they're no longer communists. Well, no, they are communists. It's just they know they can't get away with that BS anymore. So now they try to tell everybody they're reformed. No, they are not reformed. They believe in the exact same stuff. It's just, what can you get away with? Nothing more. Nothing less. And so I put it to anybody out there, again, you look at what Hillary did, you look at what Bill Clinton did, colluded with the Russians, and then compare it with what Trump has supposedly done. There's nothing out there. It doesn't exist. Assumptions don't count. You know, we have the exact numbers from the Clinton administration. We've got the numbers. So it doesn't, you guys, it doesn't add up. And the reason they're going to have an investigation for a year is because it's a political ploy. And what's that ploy? That just the accusation can damage you. So if they know they don't have the information on you, they'll just spread the accusation out for a couple years. That's good enough. It's the same thing. It works the exact same way. It's called character assassination. It's not going to work with Trump. You know, it's not going to work, but that's what they're doing. Otherwise, think about this. They pulled out everything they possibly could on Donald Trump. You know, what about these 7 women that said Trump raped them or you know, you guys, I mean, where's their voices at? Where are they at now? You know, it just simply doesn't, none of it adds up. It's character assassination. In other words, if they had collusion or evidence that Trump colluded with the Russians, they would have used it during the campaign, all right? Because it's obvious that they've been investigating him before he was even the nominee for the Republican Party. And that's the information that's coming out. It's not just what this lady said in the interview, Dr. Farkas, on, you know, why they wanted to get as much information on Trump and get it up to certain intelligence committees and stuff like that and, you know, unmask them. It was going on before that. So that's why that story doesn't jive. Because it was going on, you know, and I think she said that some of the information went out and the end of that process was in January. You know, that's way after, you guys, that was after the election. Trump had already won. He just hadn't taken his seat yet. Anyways, in inquiring to the Clintons, he continued, would provide a broad look at foreign influence peddling that threatens our democracy. Further, Gingrich said, the investigation should include China as well as Russia. Gingrich on Friday also called for all records involved the Obama administration decisions on intelligence that has been gathered. You know, that's why I like Gingrich, because, you know, the reason I think about what I talk about, I throw out all the math you can out there on the topic. You cover all the bases. And this guy does the exact same thing. He's very, very good at it. He just happens to be a historian also. So it, you know, it's strange, guys. You know, the people that I got my education with, you would be able to sit down with them, and it sounds, you got to understand, they wound us up. Went through a 2.5-year program. They wound us up. There's 5 of us. You sit down, talk to them, and I guarantee you they'll come up with the exact same conclusion that I would. They would follow the patterns and be able to say the exact same thing. There's only one way. Empirical data, the best math that you can get. If it was off in any way, and there was a debate between us, then someone would correct, say, hey, this is where I got the information, and then let's say I was wrong. I didn't gather all the correct information. I'd say, you know what, you're right. Your math is better, and that trend is more appropriate. It's that simple. It's that simple. So it's, and that's what Newt Gingrich does. That's why I've always respected him. First of all, you have to subpoena, and I would assume Trump White House would turn them over, all the Obama administration records about these decisions, Gingrich said. Those are very strange decisions made early in January by the Obama team. If they would allow gossip and things that were not proven to be spread widely within the intelligence community, knowing that they were likely to leak, why was it decided, and who made that decision? Gingrich said he writes novels about terrorism, but that is beyond anything I could have put in a novel. It's so bizarre that you would have this going on right now. Frankly, they probably need 3 or 4 parallel investigations. Matters would have, or not have, been different if Attorney General Jeff Sessions had recused himself from matters involving Russia, Gingrich believes. You have people who would go to the Intelligence Committee because they want them to know what happened, Gingrich said. Sessions might have accelerated it some, but you have professional FBI. You have the professional FBI happened, Gingrich said. Sessions might have accelerated some, but the FBI digging into that, and you're really going to have months of investigation. And frankly, the hearings are going to lead to information which will lead into more steps. I expect will be given with us for at least 2 years. Gingrich also said he does not know why the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes went to the White House to view allegations, documents, later telling the president in a press conference what he'd seen. He could clearly have handled it better, Gingrich said. I don't think so. Look, you guys, basically an injustice was being done. It's that simple. He respected Trump, and he's for Trump, voted for Trump, for Trump's agenda, and he's like, hey, these guys are trying to sabotage you. I got your back. This is what I've seen. How is that illegal? How is that immoral? How is that, we're trying to investigate him? No. You're being investigated. The Democrats are being investigated. That's what this Schiff guy doesn't understand. You are suspect. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to go after somebody. You're trying to create this hype that he did something wrong without putting any information in front of you. Well, what did Nunes do? He put real information in front of Trump. Now, Trump basically took that information and said, well, it was wiretapped. Well, it might have not been technically wiretapped as far as the FISA goes, because, we'll count that here in a minute. But people are listening on their phone calls. It's that simple. Everybody's talking about it now. Now they got caught. Now they're giving you reasons why. Well, we wanted to make sure that, this information didn't get bull crap. Well, we got good intelligence on the Russians. Well, then throw it out there. Where's the law that says you can't talk about it? Where's it at? You've accused them of everything else, and you're not going to accuse them of the information that you have that's supposed to be true? It doesn't make any sense. Gingrich also said that he could clearly have handled it better. Gingrich said, let's be clear, Adam Schiff, who is a Democratic ranking member, is totally partisan to the idea that somehow Nunes is different. You have a Senate bipartisanship at the moment, and the things tend to become very partisan. No kidding. That's why I disagree with Newt Gingrich on Nunes could have handled it better. No, he did exactly what he's supposed to do. He went up to the White House and told President Trump, saying, hey, these guys are after you. We know that they're after you. We know they're leaking information. We know they've been watching you since before you even the Republican nominee. And then they really went after you in January because the way that Obama sidestepped the law, changed the law or the procedure. Yeah, what a jerk for informing the President of the United States that all that's true and that's happening. Now you should wait 2-3 years on down the road. That's what you ought to do. Why these guys do full-on character assassination, let Nunes just kind of sit there and hang with that information. Yeah, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. Anyways, folks, we'll be right back. Thank you for calling Crosstalk. This is Tony.
My question is in regards to Israel. I know they're sitting on, basically floating on oil.
So go ahead, Sean. I know you have a couple more questions.
Oh, I've got a million questions. You just tell me when to stop.
For your opportunity to have a conversation with Tony on Crosstalk, call me at 541-946-8721.
Welcome back, all. Let's kind of put this stuff together a little bit. We'll simply do the math, all right? So what do we know for sure? And this is from the Obama administration. This is not from Republicans. What do we have? We have that they have been following the Republicans and his staff before and Trump before he was even the nominee for the Republican Party. That's coming from Democrats, by the way. Then what do we have? We have 2 FISA requests from the Democrats. Then we have one of Obama's former administration, top administration, and an advisor to Hillary Clinton. Remember that she was a campaign advisor to Hillary Clinton. And what was she doing? Telling everybody that, hey, make sure you keep as much of these files as you can so we can unmask them and circulate them later on down the road. That's exactly what she said. Because that's exactly what they did, by the way. Where do you think the leaks came from? And then you have one of the Republicans in the House that was under... You guys, I apologize. Her name's Katie. I forget her last name. I don't have it in front of me. We found out that she's leaking from the Republican side. By the way, you guys, this is one of the reasons I got out of the Republican Party, out of politics, because it's not necessarily that she was trying to sabotage Trump. What it is that her and her team were probably trying to sabotage another Trump advisor so they can get in their place. And that's the type of garbage that happens. And so what did it end up doing? It ended up hurting Donald Trump. Person probably for him, voted for him. This Katie, loves him, wants him to succeed, but they're probably after Bannon. They're probably after somebody else. And so that's what they were doing. They were trying to embarrass each other. That's the type of garbage that goes on. Complete narcissistic, backstabbing SOBs, and that's why I wouldn't be able to handle it. I'd handle it in a completely different way. It would, she got assigned to a different spot because there was a suspicion. Well, you guys, there's no suspicion. They know. But probably the explanation was, well, I wasn't after you. I was after this guy, and around we go. But here's the point. All right. You start adding things up that you can prove. Trump didn't collude with anybody. Trump ran his campaign. That's the accusation, is that, well, the Russians came along and they helped him campaign and they helped him win. How did he win? How did Trump win? You guys, all you have to go do is look at the playbook for Ronald Reagan. He did a mirror image of what Ronald Reagan did. That's it. That's all it was. And Hillary sucks. She just flat out sucks eggs. I mean, you got Democrats that, that don't even want to look at her anymore. I remember there's a couple articles back. I was having a brunch with a couple friends, very, very liberal. And it's like, hey, look at this article out. And we had our iPads going on, and they, it said that Hillary, there's a possibility that Hillary will make a run for it. And they're like, I don't ever want to see that chick again. I mean, she's disgraceful. Out of all the Democrats, of all the potential people out there that can run, that's the last person they want to ever look at. So she's done. That's how bad of a candidate she was. But somehow that, you guys, look, I'm telling you this, the top Democrats do not believe for a second that Trump colluded with the Russians. What they believe in is character assassination. They don't have the proof, so they'll drag the accusation out for 2 years. That's what they're doing. Nothing more than that. In the meantime, the Obama administration is getting clobbered with, look, you guys, did they or did they not unmask Flynn's name? Did they or did they not unmask other people that were in Trump's administration or his campaign? Did they or did they not unmask their names? That's illegal. Period. That's it. That's the one thing that's provable. 100% provable. So we just simply do the math. Was there 2 FISA requests? Yep, there was 2 of them. They got denied. Did they still gather the information anyways? Yep. You have people in the Obama administration admitting to it, and then they're giving you the reasons why. All you have to do is do the math. That's it. The idea that someone can walk into your house and say, hey, we want to inspect your house. Well, what for? Well, because, we want to make sure you didn't commit murder. Well, okay, well, who was killed? Well, nobody. But if you don't let us inspect your house, that means you're basically a murderer. Well, how's that work? Well, you won't let us inspect your house, so that makes you look guilty. That's how asinine what it is that these people are trying to pull off. And with half the people out there in the United States buying into it because of IQ problems, they can get away with it. But in the end, I'm telling you this, the trend in the end, that there's going to be Democrats that are going to be in deep, deep trouble. You had the top senior Democrat walking into the White House, looking at the same information that Nunes had and warned the president what it is that he was looking at, came out and didn't have anything to say about it. Think about that. Obviously he's not going to change his position because he's biased. But, what do you say? Well, there's some technical issues on how this stuff got out. What are you talking about? So him not denying that what Nunes said was true means everything, you guys. Means everything. Body language. Body language. And it's that simple. But look, we ran out of time, and it's, you guys, thank you so much for your patience. And again, we didn't have this up yesterday because we wanted to be able to do the crosstalk and invite you guys. You guys are still invited for that. And again, you guys, thank you so much for your support. And we'll be doing a lot more of these. So look at the number on your screen. Give us your opinion, you guys. You take as much time as you want. Just make sure it's clean, and we'll throw it up there for you guys. And again, everybody, until the next audio, God bless. Thanks all.